Hello. Happy Saturday for anybody who's joining me actually live. I was making a video for the women in my No Man Diet group. And so I got here, I just ended up going on a whole piece on this video for my No Man Diet women, and I'm a little late for my live, so sorry about that. And welcome to those of you who are joining. As always, let me know if you can't hear me. Sometimes technology just does wonky things, and I don't know why. And also, as always, whether you're watching live or you're watching the replay, please bring in your own questions, your own comments, shares about your life, all those things. I welcome them. I love them. I love being in the dialogue. So, with all that said, relational legacy. I had this phrase, it was like it arrived fully formed in my mind just maybe last week, a couple weeks ago. And it was really interesting in particular because I actually have had a lot of resistance to the idea of legacy, like as a concept. People talk about what's your legacy and what do you want to leave as a legacy and what's your legacy work. And I always had this I think some of that comes from back off. I'm just trying to live right now, let alone, figure out what I'm leaving for future generations or something. I just want to, which actually lends itself quite well even to this idea of relational legacy, because I believe that we actually are leaving a relational legacy in any moment that we're in relationship. That there is how we bring ourselves to that moment, to that relationship, and I call it relational legacy versus relationship legacy. A lot of us might think, well, I want to teach my children how to have a healthy relationship, or I want to these kinds of things. And I really mean it in the sense of relational, it's alive. And so part of what I want to say is I actually believe that we all leave a relational legacy, whether we intend to or not. That none of us gets out of this, none of us gets out alive. None of us gets out of this without having left some relational legacy. And so the question becomes, what is the legacy I want to leave? And how intentional am I being about that? And how intentional can I be? And to me, I also really want to tease apart any place where this could seem oh shit, that's a lot of pressure, that I'm leaving a relational legacy in every moment, so I have to do it right. And bring it actually to what I would call the energetic level, which, for instance, I'm in relationship with you right now, all of you in a little bit in some way, and I could be bringing okay, I have to on the surface level would be, I have to communicate this, or there's some relational legacy, I'm being really intentional, and so there's that. But I think the legacy I'm actually leaving is the energy below it, which is the tightness and the I have to get it rightness. That's actually the level at which relational legacy is left, is more at this this energetic level. So then the work actually becomes the clearing out. So in the moment, it's more present to what is the dynamic that I want to create between us, and that's the legacy. And some of those are going to be a moment in time. And again, I want to take the pressure. Frankly, there's moments where I'm just I got nothing, But the more open, maybe is the word I'll use, the more open I can be about that. I've had moments where I don't remember somebody's name and I'm just dead tired, maybe after teaching or leading. And there are times when I've met that moment by trying to pretend I'm more available than I am, and trying to make sure that they don't know that I can't remember their name and things. And there's other moments where I'm wow, I'm beat. I'm sorry, like, I didn't even hear what you said. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. And I would say in those moments, I've actually left like a more open relational legacy than a moment where maybe I've said something better, but like what's really there is pretending, some kind of pretending. But for me, so that's the more momentary, and I believe that's important, because there is a way that just by moving through the world and the places that we interact with people and the moments we have, that we are leaving relational legacy. And it doesn't mean that it's forever, even. I think it would be okay to say this. Mark Silverman's on, at least he was here live a moment ago, and he and I had a moment not too long ago that got like, Wah! But the beauty of it was that he came to me and he said, hey, it seems like something went, Wah! Can I check that out with you? And so part of our relational legacy includes that little, Wah! I'm just going to see how many times I can make that noise. But the greater part of the relational legacy, that I'm sure that I have a part in it, but I'm actually going to say that he's leaving with me, is his coming forward. No, he didn't make that sound. But is the relational legacy is actually that he came to me and wanted it to be cleared. So that to me is actually the legacy. And then there's these longer relationships that we'll have with our children, that we'll have with our partners, that we'll have with the parents of our children, that we'll have with our friends. And again, I think it's actually at the energetic level. So in this particular video, I don't know that I have like answers, but I really wanted to bring both the concept that we do leave a relational legacy, and then the question about like, how do we bring, maybe the question really is more, I want to start the question of like, what is the relational legacy I want to bring? And so again, in the long-term ones, to me, it's less about being like the perfect mother and leaving a relational legacy of always being nice, or again, like doing it perfectly, and more is what's the way that I can leave this relational legacy with my children that is that's like, I keep wanting to say open, that creates space for all of us, that's filled with love. Like, I want to leave a relational legacy with my children that's filled with love. So, I mean, you guys are actually getting to witness me pondering this question in real time, because this is a new idea for me. And one of the ways that looks for me is that I say to them, sometimes I've yelled. Oh my God, I know you're shocked that I ever yell at my kids, but I yell at them. And then I come back to them and I say, I'm really sorry. Maybe it's something around, I was really frustrated in that moment, or these things, and I'm sorry. In fact, was it yesterday or the day before, I literally said, I was like, okay, kids, we need to have a conversation. I was like, look, it's on me. Like, my part in this is I am doing my best to not yell. And I want to treat you both with kindness. And I'm having a really hard time with that, or like, I notice the times I have the hardest with that are when I have to say things 3 and 4 and 5 times, and it seems like I only get your attention when I yell. It's still my responsibility to not yell or be mean, but could I have some help here? Like, are you willing to, maybe, can you respond to me the first times, or can we talk about what's happening when you don't respond? So this is, for me, this conversation with my children, like, how do I leave a relational legacy that's filled with love, even in the midst of doing it imperfectly and fucking up? So I just want to check a couple comments here, and for anyone, any questions or comments that are coming up, I'd love to hear them, and then I'll I have a little bit longer to share before I actually need to go be with my children. Carl said, I mean, see, this is an interesting example. So Carl, I don't think you and I have ever met, but we're starting to have this relationship over Facebook. And you show up on my lives, and I'm starting to get a feel for who you are. And like, there's some relational legacy that we're creating together. And I may never meet you in person. It's kind of wild. Anyway, Carl said, ever have to deal with the baggage so picked up from previous relationships? I think there's like some autocorrect going on, so I'm not fully following. I think there is value in being intentional in what seeds we're planting. 100% agree with that. And there's definitely, so there's some piece in here you're talking about relationship or baggage from previous relationships. And so I also, even taking it out of the realm of just intimate relationships, where that's a lot of times what it's like, oh, I have all this baggage from my previous boyfriend, or I have all this baggage from, it's just like all of it. And some of it too, so this is where I want to get into like the idea of the relational legacy is, and I was sharing this a little bit about how I relate with my children, but I think it's also true in intimate relationships or in all relationships, is like, I don't know that I believe that we ever fully get over or let go of or completely clear out all of our baggage forever and ever. There are absolutely experiences and work that I've done that have just changed things forever or give me a whole new way to relate. But for instance, like between my partner and I mean, he's got baggage, I've got baggage. And the legacy is actually, in some sense, and some of this is actually between he and I. Some of it is, my kids get to witness this capacity. Is less about like, oh, watch two perfect humans have a perfect relationship. It's like, oh, watch two imperfect humans relate deeper than their baggage, and have an experience even of like, oh, that happened, but like, do I have to respond just from that place? It doesn't maybe mean that I never have my baggage or I never have my reaction, but how do I relate anyway? How do I relate anyway? And so again, even starting with the question, what is the relational legacy that I either want to create with this other person or just in general? Like, what is it's again, at the energetic level, like what is like the energetic field that I want to have left relationally? And even asking that question and then starting to have, like, for me, you witnessed me, sort of go through that with my kids. And I think there's something about love for me in general. Like, I want to leave this energetic relational field of love. For me, there's a real deep part around generosity. Like, I want to leave an energetic relational field of more generosity in the world. Probably curiosity. So I'm working out these for myself, but as you start to name these for yourself, they become a lens through which you can actually pass your decisions or your actions or your responses through. Somebody does something and I want to respond something, and then I can go like, okay, does that response leave more love, more generosity, more curiosity? And again, this really isn't about like, I have to be nice all the time, or I have to be good, or I have to only do it this way. But the question about like, okay, so how I bring this, does it leave more love in the world? Certainly maybe in this actual dynamic, but also in the world. So for instance, somebody left a Facebook, it's so weird to do this on Facebook, but somebody left a comment on the Facebook Live I did yesterday, actually, around that, where I was talking to men, and it was about consent. And they seemed kind of upset, and they were kind of like, why don't we ever talk about women's part? And my first impulse was just to not respond at all. And then I was sort of like, but then anybody who comes, all they get is this piece. And then either they bring their own stuff into the space or nothing comes and I haven't responded at all. And I thought like, well, what actually offers more love? And I don't know for sure if what I did that, but even me coming from that place had me make a different decision. And I responded and I just said, it seems like you're having this experience and it seems like maybe you didn't hear this piece, or I thought I said this, but maybe not clearly enough. And for me, that was partly about what I wanted to convey to that particular person, but it was also like, what did I want in the space? And a lot of that for me comes from like, I really believe that who we be, like certainly our actions and our words, but also it's like all of that is an expression just of who we be. And who we be literally, it's like a sonic boom into the world. And that's the relational legacy. I mean, that's the energetic legacy. And then I believe it, like there's this place relationally, that's so much of where my work is about. So I think I really feel it that way, but there's like this sonic boom, like ripples in the world. Is the world more a loving place because of this? Sometimes, right, like we don't do something because we think like, oh, that's going to be mean and I want to be nice, but actually our contraction around it creates less love in the world. It's almost like it sucks in versus sending like a sonic boom of love out and actually saying like, no, or I don't like that, or stop, or you may not talk to me like that, actually sends more of a sonic boom of love than I won't say anything because it wouldn't be nice. So I'm going to check a couple more comments and then I probably need to sign off soon. And I'll just say again, for as so many of these conversations are for me, I hope that they're the beginning. To me, or for me, this feels quite deep. And so I know that I'm going to be exploring this conversation around relational legacy. And this is just the beginning. So I put it out there for you. Also, may it be the beginning in your own life, and may it be the beginning of a conversation perhaps between us or between, the people in your life. So Carl said, awareness of how we show up and acknowledge that we're connected to everyone, that everyone is an aspect of myself, and owning that. Then the legacy kind of becomes a side effect from that. Yeah, yes. I mean, I love this piece that you said about awareness of how we show up and acknowledge that we're connected to everyone. I believe that very strongly. And in like Buddhist teaching, there's this idea of Indra's net. And it's basically like a world, or a universal web. And the idea, and then it has a jewel at each point where the web connects. And then if we touch any part of it, the whole thing ripples. It's just this beautiful, beautiful image. And it sort of lives in the background for me as a teaching on interconnectedness. So I don't disagree that everyone's an aspect of you or of me. And it's not really the, like where I come from in my teaching. So I find it more, for me, I find it more valuable, the first piece of awareness that I'm connected and that I have an impact. Like I have an impact. And frankly, this is a harder one for me, but there are like, I do believe there are people who have bigger impacts than other people. And some of it, whether that's from our karma, whether it's like the own spiritual work we've done, but like for some of us, like our sonic boom is louder, our light is brighter, and frankly, so is our shadow. So if you know yourself to be one of those people who has a bigger impact, whether it's, like in this kind of, in the world, or you just know you walk in a room and you change it really dramatically, there's a certain responsibility that I believe comes with that. So, but I do love that then it's kind of like legacy becomes a side effect. Although for me, I do love this idea of using the legacy piece like as a lens. And in that way, it's slightly different than a side effect, but going like, okay, am I creating more of what I want in the world? And that if we never ask ourselves the question, like, what is the relational legacy I want to leave? Then we don't have a clear lens to look through. We might think we know, or we're kind of like, well, I know how the impact I want to have, so I do more of that. But without ever really naming it, we don't have a filter to go like, well, was that more of that? Or even to take honest feedback about, I meant to create more love with that comment, but what I actually created was this, and go like, intent versus impact. And what is the relational legacy I want to leave? So, hi, Karen. Well, I like that comment that you love it and you think it's a more evolved way of living. That like feeds my my ego, as it were. I do think that there's something like where this is a slight shift in the golden rule, or there is this kind of karma piece. I haven't always known how to relate to karma. But there's something that I believe in that, like as someone who grew up Buddhist, frankly, this is a tangent, but when I was a kid, reincarnation just like freaked me out, because life, I mean, literally, I can remember being like 10 years old and thinking about reincarnation and just feeling so tired. I was like, but life is so hard. Like, I don't want to have to make friends all over again. I was 10. I was like 10, and I didn't want to do it again. So, but there is this feel like I've also, as I've watched my children, again, whether we call it karma or who knows, there's epigenetics, and there's just so many different pieces. And whose karma is it, right? When it's our kids, is it mine or is it theirs that we came to work out, or both? But I watched them come in as like totally different beings. And I mean, it's just shocking. Like, I watched literally come into the world as completely different beings. And then, and then of course there is some of the nature in the kind of nurture versus nature piece, or there's some nurture, I guess, and how we relate to that. I'm not saying who we are as parents doesn't matter, but there is definitely something that we come into the world with. And I saw that more clearly than ever becoming a mother. Hold on, I gotta just check and make sure I'm not late for my kids. Thanks for sticking with me there. Carl said, I often use the example of a shit sundae. Like, if shit is the foundation, it doesn't matter how many layers of ice cream and whipped cream are on top. You don't really want that sundae for yourself. We get to clean the shit up first, but we have to be aware it's there before we could do the work to clean it up. I love that analogy. Actually, there's a comedian named W. Kamau Bell. This is taking a little more political, but he talks about I can't remember exactly. I can't remember if it was more recent enough that he was talking about Trump supporters, or he was talking about like, maybe he was talking about white supremacists or something, and sort of like the way people are like, not all white supremacists or whatever. And he was like, if I give you a shake, like a milkshake, and then I tell you it's like 10% shit, or even just like 1% shit, you're not going to drink that milkshake. Like, it doesn't matter what the percentage is. It's mixed into the shake. So yeah, it's a great analogy. Jenna said, the energetic withdrawal is the stinginess. Thank you for offering an alternative. Right. So yeah, there is this piece around like, what's the energetic imprint or foundation on top of which we do the things? And they're frankly both important. I don't think that it's like one or the other. Like, I don't even know if we can do really shitty things from like a truly open heart and body, but what we do is important, and who we're being underneath is important, and like working on both. Yeah, I love that question, Arvind, around what would love do. Although I will say sometimes it's kind of abstract, Like, because some people will take that and say like, well, love would never yell, you know, or love would like we can get a little constricted sometimes in our ideas of love. And I don't even want to assume that everybody wants, like, that love is the word that actually comes up for everybody when they think about their relational legacy. Freedom might come up for some people. So this is why I invite it as a question, and then like as a lens to look through, and then to start to look at the energetic imprint. Like, is my energetic imprint creating freedom? Is my energetic imprint offering trust? Is my energetic imprint like, and first to really come up with like it's like values, right? Rather than assuming that we all have the same values, find out what they are for you and what are the words that truly capture it for you, because then that's a lens that you can use. Whereas just assuming like, well, we all value blah, 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 or like we all want to leave a legacy of this, make it personal and let it be okay, even if love doesn't show up in your relational legacy list. You know, maybe it's a different word that captures the thing that you truly want to like offer into the world as your relational legacy. Okay, last couple minutes here. Carl said, I believe that impact is a choice, though not always consciously. So I don't think people inherently have more impact, but without question that some people do. That's an interesting piece to think about. We used to, like just on the intent versus impact, and this kind of goes with this relational legacy. It's just a different aspect of it. So again, I know that I haven't, this isn't like a 5-point system, although I don't know that my lives ever are. But more this place where I want to open up this question and even start to bring into the collective consciousness that there is such a thing as relational legacy. Hashtag. But when we started the Authentic Man program about somewhere, I don't know, 17 years ago, and we had what we called standards of being. And one of the standards of being was, it had to do with, how did it go? But it was basically like, rather than just, oh, what was my intent, but actually taking responsibility for the impact. That we used to say, this is what it was, communication received is communication delivered. Now, I'm not saying that that's 100% true, and it's actually a really powerful place to come from. Like, okay, what if I took 100% responsibility for the way that my communication was received and then went from there? I don't necessarily recommend doing that with everybody all the time, but choosing some relationships and then just taking like, what can I learn about that? How can I take more responsibility for my impact? So I hear my kids banging around downstairs, and it's time for me to go. Thank you, as always, for those of you who are here live, who offered your questions and your comments. If you're watching the replay, I love you too, and I welcome your questions and comments. And let this be the starting point. What is the relational legacy that you want to leave? Ciao.